YouTube? My name is rhianaB and welcome back to another review of Survivor 41. We have got another crazy episode to discuss today. Another live tribal council, food, politics, and new alliances being put to the test. We have a lot to discuss, and some things were good, some things a little bit questionable if you're asking me personally. But before we delve into this latest review of Survivor 41, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you'll always be on the lookout for my newest Survivor videos, plus any other videos that I've done in the past. Please do so, I would really appreciate it. Alrighty then, so we are at the aftermath of last week's intense second half tribal council. And Yasa basically is non-existent anymore. I feel like there is still a unity between Xander, Evie, and Tiffany, but I think because Liana has basically left the building, and because of the last tribal, they now feel like they need to be free agents and they don't need to rely on each other as much anymore. So that leads to everyone on Yasa going to everyone else in the tribe saying, I'm a free agent, I'm here to work with you. And the first person to speak up about this is Deshawn. And now this makes sense for Deshawn to basically call this pathetic because they were the ones who put votes on him the last tribal. So of course, Deshawn's gonna be like, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to save your own ass. And I'm not here for it. I'd rather see you all just gone. So it's interesting. I feel like one thing that's really interesting is that probably not since, Cambodia maybe, that there have been, I feel like, a lot of openness with alliances. And what I mean by that is in Cambodia, there was a lot of crazy vote outs because everyone was voting in voting blocks versus alliances. And voting blocks are always more maneuverable. You can like build them up, bring them down. You can, for lack of a better term, build them however you so choose to, whatever fits better in the moment. I feel like that's happening a lot here because if you are a main alliance and you had plenty of numbers to work with, you should be going after the biggest targets. But I feel like last episode and tonight's, I feel like we were enacting a lot of safe votes. And I don't know if that's gonna lead to a bigger conclusion at the end of this season or what. I don't know. I have a lot of, I wish I could delve into the minds of the players because I'm very confused about a lot of parts that we've seen in recent episodes. But anyway, we'll move on to the reward challenge. Now, before it starts, we see Jeff, again, talking to us as the audience. He decides, God forbid, to put another advantage in the game. This time, hiding it on the sit-out bench at the reward challenge. So whoever is going to be sitting there will have the likelihood to find it if they are looking for it. Now, if anybody has watched Survivor Game Changers, and I watched it, I reviewed it, and I talked about this, the players in this season should know that this should be a great place to hide an advantage because that's how Sarah found hers, and Michaela famously didn't look for it and didn't find it. So we're back to doing rock draws again to pick out the reward teams, and somehow the Survivor gods, they have split these teams up into how they were when we were at the merge challenge. If this starts happening again and again, I'm gonna feel like there's some shenanigans happening here. Because even, lo and behold, Erica takes the bad rock again, and she was gonna be sitting out of the challenge and couldn't have the reward, which was grilled cheese. But Xander steps up and says, you know what, Erica, get on this team. I want you to have a shot at getting some food since you were on exile for 2 days. I don't know how much of that decision was strategy, because maybe Xander did think, oh, hey, I'm at the sit-out bench. Maybe I should be looking for an advantage here. I don't know. Xander has a very smart brain, and he would think of something like that, and as we saw during the challenge, he was looking for that advantage. Although, sadly, he didn't find it. But anyway, the reward, honestly, it was pretty okay until the very end when Evie just solved the pyramid puzzle just like this. Turns out she pulled a Spencer Bledsoe and practiced this challenge at home, and it worked out because she knew the puzzle and she solved it very, very quickly. I don't know, I find that very fun how Because Survivor does tend to reuse a lot of challenges and puzzles, it's very easy to practice those puzzles at home in maybe kind of convoluted ways, but to practice them. And that way, when you get onto Fiji, you can actually put that knowledge to the test. Shows your super fandom, which I think is really, really cool. So, Erica, Evie, Danny, Ricard, and Deshawn, they all win the grilled cheese reward. And ironically enough, they were the ones who won the merge feast, this time not including Nasir, who they chose to go with them in the first place. So we have one half of a tribe that's doing very well as far as food is concerned, and then we have another half that's maybe they're starting to lose it a little bit because of lack of food. And that's why when we get back to the camp after the reward, we see Liana and Shan getting very, very emotional about them not having food. They're starving. And this is what I was thinking about in the last review I did, where I wonder if the hunger is starting to really mess with the mind of a player. Because obviously when you don't have your food and maybe not adequate enough water, I don't know how the water system really works in Survivor besides they get it from a well. I don't know how much water they actually drink in a day. But that can really mess with your head when you just constantly are thinking about that you're hungry. I can understand the emotion, although it's kind of weird watching it on television, people crying over food. You have to understand that this is a really harsh season of Survivor and that these people are very, very hungry, and Shan is, at least out of everyone in her group, is the skinniest person there. She probably needs that food pretty badly, which leads quickly, I'll talk about one thing here in a second as well, but I did want to cover how Nasir, being the provider that he is, basically being like an Aussie incarnate, finds papaya in the jungle and brings it over, and they now have papaya to eat, which is a really great find. It's sweet, it's fruit, there's vitamins, there's nutrients in there, it's got liquid in it. It's really great fuel for you. And then when the reward group come back after they just ate, then Ricard goes and eats a tiny little sliver of it just to taste it, and Shan gets very, very upset about this. And this sets Ricard off very much, and he starts thinking, why is she so demanding over this food? It's tribe food. It's like, and I just took a tiny, tiny, tiny little piece of it. What's the big deal? And I understand where Ricard is coming from, but I do agree with Shan. You just had 2 big meals in the past number of days. You're a lot better off than someone like me who has barely had anything. So, go over there. You don't need to eat right now. You're all stuffed. Let us have some nutrients, have some food. So I'm going to side with Shan here, but maybe the way she came across it, maybe not the best way to handle it. Now, one thing I did want to go back to really quick, the thing I slightly skipped to make the food politics thing a little bit more coherent, was Shan is now on the move against Evie. She wants Evie gone. She realized that she is smart, she is a big threat, and she is very sociable. Not to mention that her new ally Liana was very, very close with Evie. So it's almost in a way taking away Liana's options so that she stays with Shan, which is very smart, and that's something that you do need to consider, is that if you have someone in your alliance that once belonged to another alliance, cut that break off completely, just in case they want to go back. Then we also see Shan going to Xander and saying, Xander, we want to get out Evie. And because Yasa is basically in free agent mode, Xander's actually open to doing this. I think Xander clearly realizes that Evie is a threat to him, but at the same time, he's been very loyal to her and they have a very strong bond. Does he want to keep that trust within himself? I don't know if necessarily he would go for that right now, but I do think he is definitely considering blindsiding Evie. Also, I'm so sorry, I also forgot to mention this. I wrote this in my notes. Shan did make a comment about Ricard right before we got to the immunity challenge that she still says that Ricard is her #1 ally. Now don't get me wrong. You two were on the same starting tribe, and you two were the last 2 of your tribe. However, you did not end it very well. You ended it in an argument. We do see that the extra vote is still going to be a big argument in the next episode, and we haven't seen you two together at all since the merge. So what haven't we seen? What are the producers hiding from us that are concealing this twosome between Shan and Ricard? I don't understand why she is still saying that he's her number one. And even Ricard is still saying, hey, I can still have an alliance with Shan. Where are these confessionals coming from? What's the backstory here? I know there's a lot to discuss. We have a lot of things going on, but I want to know what this is because we're not being told what's going on, and it does bother me just a little bit. Now we finally get to the immunity challenge. It is the classic stand on your tiptoes with a block above your head, and you need to keep that block on your head against a beam, and if you fall off or you touch the sides, you're out. But what was interesting was right before the immunity challenge, Jeff offers up some rice for the players. I was watching Rob Has a Podcast with him and Steven, and they were saying that the reason they're doing this now is because they're obviously already starting to see one half of the tribe is getting a lot of benefits from the food they're eating, so it's giving them a bit more of an advantage. So, to make it a little bit more even, Jeff either offers up a small portion of rice, it looked like about a cup full of rice, maybe like a cup and a half of rice, and that would be given to the tribe if at least one person sat out of the immunity challenge. But Jeff also offered 3 days worth of rice for everybody on the tribe if a multitude of people stepped out of the challenge. And now we have a bartering going back and forth. Someone offered 3, Jeff said 7, which is a little crazy. Come on, Jeff. And then they do bring it down to 5. So Shan steps forward, so does Nasir, and then all of a sudden, no one stops. And you see Evie shaking her head like, nope, I can't give this up. I'm on the chopping block tonight. Heather, I didn't understand why she didn't step forward. I figured she would think she would be safe, but nobody else is stepping forward. And then Xander, out of nowhere, says, I will step forward if I can have a guarantee that you can cut down the number to 4, and I will be the 3rd person. Jeff hears this, and he accepts. Very smart of Xander. And Xander's been giving up a lot in this episode, and that will continue till the very end of the episode. But after Xander steps forward, Ricard soon follows. That is our 4 who are sitting out of the challenge. So, with the people that are left, they start the challenge, and one by one, they start to fall. This is probably a very good sign of the food limitations being put into play here. And I came up with a very interesting theory, and I wonder if it's partially true, or maybe it's just a little conspiracy theory, who knows, but maybe because of all the craziness going on and the fact there are so many advantages in the game that lead to big outcomes, could it be possible that the Survivor producers are limiting the food to rush the challenges, and that way we're focusing more on the camp dynamics, the social and strategic play, versus the challenge wins, which some people, as I've talked to people, they're not the biggest fan of the challenges. They kind of just yada through. So, I don't know, little food for thought. But basically, one by one, people drop out of the challenge, leaving Evie, who wins immunity, which is great because she was the one who had her head highest on the chopping block. So now that the original plan was dashed after Evie won immunity, Liana talks to us in her confessional and says the new plan is for Xander to misplay his idol and that they can take out Tiffany. So basically they want to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, take out 1 more Yasam member, and then also take out Xander's idol, and that'll lessen his threat level a little bit more. The thing is, all well and good until that alliance of Liana, Deshawn, Danny, and Shan, they start to argue within each other. I think the girls want to target Xander. Liana has a lot more incentive to do so, but Shan sees Xander as a bigger threat, which he is. But then Danny starts talking about, well, let's split votes between Tiffany and Nasir, and then that way we can target 2 people who have some sort of connection to an idol. Nasir having 1 idol, and Tiffany knowing that Xander has the idol. And this starts a very, I don't know if I want to say tumultuous, but a very interesting argument throughout the rest of the episode between Shan and Deshawn. And basically, Deshawn feels like he's not having his voice be heard, that he's being told what to do by Shan, and Shan, vice versa, is thinking that no one is listening to her because she thinks her plan is the better one. And these 2 fighting, I find very fascinating because I feel like Deshawn and Shan are very similar players. They're both very sociable. They kind of like to be a little under the radar. They don't want to be the big, huge threat. I would argue that both of them were the strategic masterminds behind their original starting tribes. Which makes sense because if we recall, Erica actually wanted to work with Deshawn on Luvu because she saw him as the most strategic, smartest player. Now, obviously, I think that went to bite her in the ass a little bit because Deshawn didn't want to work with her, but that's our first clue, that Deshawn is the person who really knows what's going on and knows his stuff. So what I think is happening here is that because both of these players are playing very similar games, that just means that they're going to start butting heads. They both want different outcomes in very similar game structures. And I would argue that as of right now, Shan's has been a little bit disoriented, unorganized, whatever way you want to describe it. Whereas Deshawn, I do feel like he's a little bit more still in touch with what's going on. I mean, I still like Shan a lot, and I do think she is playing a good game, but I will say in the last few episodes, it hasn't been her best. So now, because of these different ideas coming from, what do we want to call them? The Black Four? I don't know if I want to go that far, or if we want to do like an amalgamation of their names, like DDLS or DLSD. I don't know if I like that one either, but anyway, the four-person African-American Alliance. Because they have these different ideas in their head, they start to talk to other people to give them the plan. They do talk to Xander, say, let's take out Nasir. And then Shan decides to go, actually I should say Shan and rhianaB both go to Nasir, although Shan tells him that his name's been thrown out. And then Nasir brings up Heather, and then the two girls go to Xander again and say, hey, we're gonna do Heather instead. And Xander immediately is like, red flag, someone's not telling me the truth here. And I love how he said, you know, I gotta dig through the cracks and find the error message, being that he's an app developer. I just find that funny. And saying that his betraydar is on. And I love that term. We need to make that more of a thing. I like that, betraydar. But basically, Xander and Tiffany are trying to figure out what the hell is going on. They both are talking to each other and they're like, we each think it's gonna be us tonight. We need to figure out what's going on here. And honestly, I don't know what's going on either, to be fair. Me personally, I think this is the problem of the Black Four who are trying to do way too many ideas in one tribal. I think they're trying to cover their tracks a little bit more by not making themselves involved. But I think because of the way Shan approaches toward other people, it comes off as being a little shady. And I haven't seen Deshawn really talk to anybody. I mean, I mostly saw Shan and Liana talking to people, not Danny or Deshawn. And I think if it would have been flipped, that probably would have made a big difference. Possibly they could have talked to Heather, they could have talked to Nasir, and they would have been like, hey, I heard your name be thrown around, we'll protect you. Try to give them some security, but also still target them. And I didn't really get that when Shan was talking to people. And that's where we saw the conversation with Heather. And hey, Heather got a confessional this episode, everybody. Yay for Heather. Still very much a purple-head in the game. But Heather is very suspicious of Shan, and she feels like now she needs to protect herself. Which leads to tribal council. And it starts pretty plain, although it's very apparent from the way they're talking that no one really knows what the final solution is here. I feel like there was so much scrambling going around that no one really knows who to vote for. And even Evie, the person who is sitting there with immunity, she is an extra number, and apparently no one talked to her about who she should vote for? Why? You need to get as many numbers on your side to make this plan work, especially if you're gonna do a split vote. Why not tell Evie that it's either Nasir or Tiffany or whoever? If she's claiming to be a free agent, go on and tell her. And what's the point of her telling Tiffany anyway? Where are they really gonna go? So that blew my mind, and I'm like, why is no one talking to Evie? Like, why are some people not being told what's going on? It's just really, really confusing. And then, out of nowhere, after Jeff says, it's now time to vote, all of a sudden Heather's like, wait, I need to whisper to somebody. And Jeff is a little taken aback, and he's maybe a tiny bit peeved, but I think he saw that this was going to be a big moment. And then Heather starts whispering to people saying, we need to get out Nasir. And then all of a sudden everyone else is confused, and now they're standing up. It's another live tribal council. People are saying, let's vote for Heather because she's throwing out random names that aren't a part of the plan. Deshawn not having it. And this is where Shan and Deshawn have another argument at tribal council in front of everybody. Same thing that they were having earlier in the episode, where they each have their own plans, but neither one of them really want to have that commitment to go with either one. They want to stick with their own plans. I really, really hope that not every single tribal from here on out is going to be live. I think what gives the live tribal slightly more of an appeal is that it happens like very infrequently. It doesn't happen every time. But I don't know if this is because of the shortened season, or maybe because we're not giving people enough time to reflect on what has happened, that these lives keep happening and that they have to talk about what their final decision is going to be when we get to tribal. I don't know. But I feel like there's a slight bit of a problem here when we might have the possibility of having a live tribal every single week. I'm not really down for that. It is fun a couple of times, tops, but then if it gets any more than that, it becomes very excessive. And I don't know. I just hope that next week we're not going to have another live tribal. I really, really hope that this isn't going to be a common thing every single week for us to have a live tribal. It's fun once, maybe twice tops. If it gets any more than that, I feel like it's very, very excessive. And there's a lot of people that already don't like the live tribal format. They think it shouldn't be there. And I'm kind of in that ballpark, but I don't mind if it happens every once in a while. But if we're going to be having this for the rest of the season, I'm not sure if I'm down for that. So let's hope that this isn't going to be a big trend of the season. But it did lead to some very interesting things. So, sure. So we get to the vote, and no one plays their shot in the dark die. And Xander does not play his idol, even though Ricard during the whole live tribal thing was saying, play your idol, play your idol. I think Xander got the hint that no one's throwing my name out there. I'm not hearing Tiffany's name anymore. I think I'm fine. So votes are read, and Nasir gets 1 vote. Heather and Xander get 2 votes. Heather mostly because of her random live tribal starting point. And then with 6 votes, Tiffany becomes the next person voted out of Survivor 41 and is now the first member of the jury. I was very surprised to see Tiffany go. I think like a lot of us, were kind of seeing more to her edit as the episodes had gone on. Even I was saying, okay, Tiffany has a bigger role to fill here. She's got more to her character, she's got more to her game than what we are seeing. And granted, she did make it to the merge, and she is now on the jury, but I'm a little surprised that she is the first member of the jury. I think she's going to be a fabulous juror. I think she's very excited, she's going to take it seriously, and I love that. But I was shocked that she went. And at the same time, and even she references in her farewell confessional, she's like, you guys target me when there are 3 people that have idols and advantages are all over the place. I'm not the biggest threat here. And I don't know necessarily, I believe that I don't know if I necessarily believe that her saying she's not a big threat is true. However, I do agree that this was not probably her time to go. If this was a thing to target Xander, why not just target Xander? If you could play it up to Xander that he is safe and that we're going to target other people because we don't want to touch him because he has his idols, even if he used an advantage, if you get the numbers on your side, it wouldn't matter in the end. So why not just go ahead and, cut the head off the snake? Go ahead and get rid of the big threat here. And I don't know why they're not doing that. I feel like in a lot of seasons, the big threats get taken out very, very early, or they get taken out pretty much right at the finale. So I don't know if that means that's going to happen, but it's definitely something I'm starting to see a trend of, and I wouldn't be shocked if it happened this time as well. So obviously we have some players who are now in deeper water. Alliances are now really, really shaken. Basically what we're left up to is the Black Four, are they going to stay together? I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be the case, or they'll be voting blocks instead of like a legitimate alliance. Are Xander and Evie going to find new cracks in the system? I would say yes, but we'll have to wait and see. And now Heather's actually getting content, which means now we have another dynamic to think about here. What does Heather play in the whole grand picture? She's definitely smarter than what we've seen, and that hasn't even been much, but she is smart. She knows the game. So now has her head on the chopping block possibly, and there's a couple people that are just in the background. Erica's still in the background. Ricard hasn't even been really mentioned all that much, which is very interesting. Danny's kind of been like the right-hand man to Deshawn, kind of like a David Wright and Ken in Millennial versus Gen X. I don't know. We've got a lot of stuff involving alliances and the castaways that are very interesting to look into, but we'll have to watch more episodes. We don't have that many left until the finale, so we'll have to wait and see on what unfolds in these next few days. Really quickly, the game within a game clue, it was peanut butter and chocolate as a little homage to Jenna and Heidi from the Amazon stripping for chocolate and peanut butter. And then for the confessional counts, Shan with a whopping 10 confessionals this episode, which makes sense because she was involved with a lot of people's strategies, plus her alliances as well. And then we also had Xander with 7, and then rhianaB with 5. And the lowest was Erica, Ricard, and Heather with 1 or 2 confessionals. So this was a big day for Shan as far as the gameplay, not in the best way, and the highest in confessionals of this episode. I have no idea. I really don't know who's winning now. I had a strong feeling it could have been Tiffany in the final 3. I would be pretty upset if it was Heather or Danny, just because I don't feel like they're bringing anything to the game. I still have a slight feeling about Shan being there. Evie and Xander have gone way up. I mean, I already was a fan of Evie, but Xander has definitely gone up for me. Erica could possibly sneak her way in. Deshawn, I think, would be a great winner, and I think he might get there as well. I don't know. I really don't know who's winning this, and I have looked into the edits, and I'm like, I have no idea how this is going to go. I have no idea. But hey, I guess that's the fun of it all, so. But that is it. That's all I have for this episode of Survivor 41. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me comments down below. What did you think of this crazy episode? And what are you expecting for the few episodes left to come? Just please leave me those comments because I would love to read them. And if you want to see more future videos or videos I've already done, go ahead, hit subscribe and hit the little bell icon so you can be notified when my videos come out. That's all I have for you all today, and until the next video, bye! Mwah.